So we had a request for attaching tails onto birds. And I think that this is it's a really interesting area. And rather than giving it just sort of a quick flick of the tail, I decided to spend a little bit more time on it. This is not going to be as sort of that much of a finished presentation for you here. So there will be things a little bit rough this morning. I ended up doing a project for Sibel instead of touching up our talk. So I have a bunch of slides for reference, but they're completely out of order. So I'll be kind of like going, yeah, this one will show what I want, this one. So please bear with me on that. But I think you're going to find it useful for sticking expressive tails onto your birds. Now, just imagine if you had a tail that you could flip in any direction, how great that would be for sort of, behavioral signaling. And, can you imagine like what our tails would do if we were happy? The birds are probably doing lots of signaling with their tails and postures. And if we start paying a little bit more attention to that, I think we'll be able to notice some really, really neat things. But how to get them to stick into the body when the bird isn't like totally sort of square aligned with you is interesting and can be a little bit challenging. So we're going to unpack that. And then I hope by the end of this, you'll be able to play with a tail from any angle on your birds. And so this is the most in-depth that we'll ever have kind of gone into the tail of the tail. So I am going to share my screen. On one side, I am going to have on one side, there will be a slideshow in a window. Hold on, still moving things around. There you go. On one side, there will be an image of the bird. On the other side, you're going to be seeing my my workspace, and you'll be able to watch me doing some sketching and drawing. And we're going to share that now. All right, here we go. Let's get this a little bit more focused. And I'm then going to lock the focus on the paper. One moment. Manual focus, that's what I want. All right, so here is my little bird friend. So underneath the hood of the bird, there is this sort of very weird little chicken-looking thing. And so here's its thigh, here's its drumstick, here's its little ankle and its foot. It's got a shoulder, it's got an elbow, here's its little birdie wrist, there's the birdie thumb, aw. And then at the back side, there's this weird bump that sticks out. And that's where the tail feathers attach. So the tail feathers attach onto that, and then the feathers kind of contour around that shape. That little bump there, that's where your tails are taken. But notice that there's sort of an egg of the body and this wad of tissue and bone and muscles that is sticking out in the back. That's a protuberance from the body of the bird. And so you have the body of the bird, you have that thing, and then you're good to go. So if we look at that bird on an X-ray, we see that there's the body of the bird, and then there's this wad of bone and tissue that sticks out. That's right here. So here's your body ending here, and then you have this, the bones of the spine continuing up into this. And notice how there are these sort of projections on it. There's some big bones in there for muscle attachment. And that is the little hub onto which the tail feathers are attached. So because it's there on that hub, imagine the body of the bird, that hub is what's wagging the tail. And so that means that the tail is not going to be pivoting from a point way back here on the sort of at the edge of the body of the bird. It is going to be from inside a point on that body in here. So that here's a little cute tail poking up, and it is pivoting from within that body of the mass of the bird. So let me just do a quick little sketch over here of what I'm talking about. If this is my body of my bird, I'm going to give myself one more screen here. Oh, that's all right. Now my entire computer's gone black. I'm looking at black screens. Oh, this is not good. And I'm beach balling. Avea, are we back on?
Yes, I can see your screen. Would it help if we close our videos to?
No. That was just me plugging in another screen, and so that when I'm at the drawing table, I can sort of see what other people are looking at. And it just took a little while for my computer to kind of go like, oh, look at what's going on. So if this is my bird's body, I want to think of my sort of that pad of tissue back here, and that being kind of the pivot point here for my tail. So that if that tail from here were to flip down, then my bird's body is going to come down like this. And if that tail from here is going to flip up, then I'm going to flip it around from there. But that's different than if this is a bird, having the tail move from here. I want that to think of that moving from a point kind of inside, sort of the end of this body oval. So this is not what we want. So here you can see that whole big wad moving up in our little wren friend here. It's sort of the body of the body, the ball of the body with that tail up from that. The tail is going to attach to our body. Where it does, it's covered up by feathers. These are called on the top the upper tail coverts. So these are upper tail coverts. And on the bottom, whoa, wrong way. There it is. On the bottom of all things, undertail coverts. So the undertail coverts are the coverts on the underside of the tail. And if we were to look at that from the side, which we are right now, let's give ourselves another little bird moment here. So if this is my bird's body, that tail is coming in. If you think of this bird body as an oval here, it's not coming in the middle line of this. The tail is inserting closer to the top than it is to the bottom. So the upper tail coverts are going to be a smaller streamlining thing. And they also usually end before the undertail. So the undertail coverts sometimes will stick out. Sometimes they're the same length, but very often you see the undertail coverts are a little bit longer. And so this is small, this is big, and then the rest of the belly feathers hang down from that here. So that gives you three things. One, small, big, and then there's this angle right here where the undertail coverts meet into the bottom of the belly feathers. And that is often a very kind of distinctive angle on the side of your bird. If we if the bird is lined up symmetrically, which this one sort of is, then what you're going to see across the back of the bird, those birds sort of poppers up in here. This bird has wings that are sticking down. It's got a tail that is sticking down. I'm going to draw a line across the base of the tail. I'm going to draw a line across parallel with that on the tips of the wings. I'm going to put another parallel line in here where the end of the secondary feathers are. And there'll be another line where the wings start. So what I've got is a set of parallel lines that go across the back of the bird that if you are, if it's not sitting in a twisted pose, these will line up with each other. Sometimes birds can twist. They'll hold their wing at a weird angle, but if it's being all symmetrical, then what I've got here is, here is my secondary feathers. Here's that pad of secondary feathers on the other side. Here are primary feathers that are sticking out here. Here are primary feathers sticking out here. And here is my tail. And if it is, there's a slight notch in it, we're going to be kind of okay. So these, what I call parallel guides, are going to help me keep a sense of symmetry on the back of the bird when it is nicely lining these things up. Now, it can shake its tail feathers, and so you can have the tail off at an angle like this, no problem. But very often you will see these things lining up. And if you are drawing it with the tail sticking off at an angle, then just sort of be aware that you're doing that. That will cause sort of this break in this symmetry. And people will be kind of wondering, like, was that a mistake or did you do that on purpose? You want to just make sure that when you're doing that, you are doing that on purpose. The upper tail coverts, here you sort of see the edges of these, are in a pile getting bigger towards the middle. So smaller, bigger, 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 bigger. If I'm looking at my bird's tail and there is a clump of undertail coverts on it, that means that I'm going to have smaller feathers coming in like that, another set of smaller feathers coming down here like that. And on a yellow-rumped warbler, this, believe it or not, is a yellow-rumped warbler. It's the yellow rump. how come I'm seeing these undertail of these upper tail coverts? Did I say under before? If so, please ignore that. These upper tail coverts, the edges, these ones along the sides here are dark. And then it's actually the rump feathers are a zone up in here, past the edges of these, and that's what's yellow in the yellow rump warbler. So this one is hiding its yellow rump. If you look just underneath that wing, you can see a couple of little yellow feathers peeking out. But I used to think that it was all these upper tail coverts that were yellow, but actually no, it's this little rump zone that's above those, which this bird is hiding. So let's take a look at this one from the perspective of these zones. So let's just sort of draw a line for the shape of this bird's back. There's a little stoop down, and then our tail is coming up here. I'm going to have small upper tail covert zone. I'm going to have a bigger undertail covert zone. And that's going to then tag into the belly feathers, the breast feathers of this little warbler. You can see here sort of that kind of nice, small, big, and here we're not actually getting much of an angle, but we're getting kind of a difference in texture. These feathers are kind of coming in here fluffy, and then the undertail coverts are coming down nice and clean, and it's blocking that junction with its wing. Here you can see sort of an indication of sort of the sides of these feathers here, sides of these feathers here, the belly feathers here, small on top, big on the bottom. Sometimes when you're looking at a wing from the side, you will get this sort of the pile can look a number of different ways. On this little tanager, what you're seeing is the tail tip is kind of coming out as this sort of nice, kind of compact little paddle. And you can see a little feather edge along the side of that. Maybe a hint of another one in there. Sometimes they'll be holding their tail more loosely, and they'll have some together, and then there'll be sort of another one that's sort of separate from that. So again, bottom of my tail here, parallel with this, parallel with this, parallel with this. Now, in this case, as you look down on the top of the tail, you see one big feather right there in the middle, right? All right, so what's up with that big feather? The way the feathers on the tail are aligned is like this. Imagine sort of a fanned tail. In the center, there are two feathers that are kind of coming down, and usually one is slightly overlapped over the top of the other. There's sort of two feathers in the center, and they're on top of the entire pile. So if this were a deck of cards, then, so if this were a deck of cards, the one on top that you're seeing all of is the one in the center. And then the other tail feathers are going to be sort of tucked in underneath that. So when you look at the top, you see all of the center one. Then you get your other tail feathers tucking underneath that one, which means that on the other side, I'm going to be seeing the same thing. Sometimes when you look at the top of the tail, you'll see two of these two top tail feathers side by side, but usually one of them is significantly overlapping the other. So it looks like there is one central feather, and then these guys sort of do that on either side. However, if you look at that from the other side, on the underside of the tail, the outer tail feather is the one that you're going to be seeing all of. So if I were to look at this tail from the underside, I would see all of the feathers on the sides. Here's some undertail coverts sticking in here. So you see how I've got this set up now? I've got this as my side view. And I mean, my underside view. So I've got on the side, I've got all of this feather and all of this feather. And then the other ones are going to be tucking up underneath those. And if this tail is closed, rather than seeing one feather on top with a few others sort of things sort of sticking out the side, what I'm going to be seeing is two feathers next to each other. That is this feather and this feather. And they'll come together. I am going to escape my slideshow here, and this is what I wanted. Play slideshow window. Look at that. So which one is top and which one is bottom? Yep. So this one over here on the side, that's looking at the underside of the tail. This one on a different species, this is looking at the top of the tail. This is the top of the tail of the junco. So you can see those two feathers. Again, sometimes one of those is really overlapping most of the pile, and then the rest of them sit out to the side. Let's count some feathers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. From the edge going to the tip, we had 6. What about on this side? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 12 tail feathers is what you're going to find in a lot of birds. Most birds, all your little perching birds or passerines and things like that, they're going to be running around with 6 tail feathers on either side. So that's a total of 12. You don't have to count tail feathers, right? When you're out there looking at birds, you're not going to see that many. You usually don't get enough of the look that you'll be able to actually count tail feathers, but just gives you kind of a ballpark idea as you're kind of putting in feathers. So don't like put in 20 lines saying like, look, there's all these tail feathers in here, right? Just a few lines on a folded up tail will be all you need. You also don't have to, like, let's say I have a tail with one feather. Here's a little feather that is on top, and there's feathers around here. You don't have to then go like, okay, if that's 1, then there's 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. You don't have to get in there and make sure you squeeze in the right number of tail feathers, because sometimes like this one here, it's sticking out more and it's covering up a few of the others. So just a few of those lines down there, and you get the sense that there's more tail feathers going down here. But just don't put in so many of them that you get a hypernumerary tail. Now, let's change the angle. Where is, I'm going to play slideshow in window. And I am going to change my camera here. So that you can, I guess, there we go. Hi. So let's take a look at foreshortening tails. And that's where you're going to need a stiff card and a pair of scissors. So what I'm going to do for starters is I'm just going to make a very simple tail. There's my bird tail. And what I want you to notice is that if my hand is the bird and this is its tail, right? So as this bird turns, the width of the tail is going to change. If the bird is at, let's say I'm going to rock this bird towards you, the tails are often out at an angle. As this turns, you're also going to, getting this angle across the bottom, getting that right. See here, these corners are square, right? That's a right angle. But if I rock like this, all of a sudden, there's a different angle here down at the tip of the tail. And this ends up being sort of a part of the perspective of turning your bird that is really, really important. So we're going to look at how this sort of perspective turns. And so it's going to help you to have your own little tail. Because also this is going to get, we're going to start off with something pretty simple and be like, okay, I can get that. And then we're going to add this little nuance in it that's really cool and will make your bird tails look a lot better. So cut yourself a little bird tail, and we're going to be modifying that in just a moment. We're now going to bounce back to the other cam. Whoop. All right, now, check this out. I am going to draw a bird that is at a 3/4 angle. And let's see if I can get through. Yeah, this bird will do. Play slideshow window. All right. So if I have a bird and I'm looking, whoops, if I have, yeah, there we go. If I have a bird and I'm looking straight at the back of this bird, then this sort of, the line of the symmetry of the tail is going to be coming straight down like this. I'm going to have my tail tip down here. I'm going to have my wingtips here. I'm going to have the bottom of my secondaries here. I'm going to have the top of the wing here. So everything is going to be lining up nice and symmetrically on this grid that I've made. But all I have to do is take this bird and tilt it at a little bit of an angle, and now things are different. Now things are different. And so if I have, So here I'm looking at my box. Imagine this, the back of the box. That is the bird. You're just looking at that view of the bird. Now what I've done here is I have rocked my bird a little bit. So you're seeing part of the side of the bird. And so if I rotate my bird like this, what was the back of the bird here is now the back of the bird here. And notice how this line here is not a right angle. This was a right angle here. This is no longer a right angle. So that means that my tail tip is coming here at an angle to this line. It's not square across it. And my wingtips and the ends of my secondaries and where my shoulders are coming. All those, if my bird is staying square, those lines are going to be at an angle. So let me draw in some of these little bits. My tail is coming down here. I have, this can be some secondary feathers. And there's going to be other secondary feathers here. I have primary feathers that are going to come down here. I'm going to have primary feathers on this side come down to that same line. My undertail coverts in here. And see how I've got these now, they're all at an angle, but they're lined up with each other. If you look at this little bird here, we're at a slight angle. So this side is slightly higher than this. This is slightly higher on the screen than this. So this wingtip is slightly higher than this, and this side of the tail is slightly higher than this one. So we have lines going down this way on this little bird. The thing that kind of messes me up when I'm trying to draw one of these birds and kind of getting, very often at the start, I was getting the wings all sort of, I could sort of see that, yeah, we need to keep this wing sort of parallel with this other wing. And let me see if there's another, this is what I didn't have all the time. Okay, here, this one will help. Yeah. I'm going to play slideshow in window. Actually, I'm going to undo that. Let's see if I can just, zoom in on this one right here. All right, so check this birdie out. High side, low side, high side, low side, high side, low side, high side, low side, high side, low side. So on this, if I'm drawing something like that, I've got, depending on the angle that you're looking at the bird, you'll either see these lines coming this way if you're looking more down on it, or if you're looking more up on it, you're going to see it the other way. So here are these sets of parallel lines. And this bird has, you've got some bird back in there. It's got secondary feathers that are coming down on one side. And then on the other side, the secondary feathers are coming down a little bit further. You have the primary feathers sticking out below that here. On this side, the primary feathers are sticking out going down to that line. There's undertail coverts that are sticking out in here, or sorry, upper tail coverts. And you see the yellow rump above that. And then the tail is coming down like that, and we have one sort of major one in the center. And we have one side coming down here, we have the other side. So, but you see how these sets of parallel lines help us then, let's put in just to kind of round this birdie out. See how that wing fits in with everything here. Here's the back of my bird, here's the bird's head. But this wing at an angle, this body at an angle, I get I get the there's the a high side and a low side, but I want to keep these wingtips, the ends of these, the ends of this, roughly symmetrical to each other. Now, so what I'm doing here is if I have a tail and my bird's body is up in here. If I'm looking at it flat and square, I get that. So here's, say, the back of the bird's secondaries, and here's the tip of its tail. If I turn that at an angle, then these, you see, then I've got this at an angle, this at an angle. And that is, and I want to keep those square. Now notice on mine, if you are very observant, you'll notice that this angle that this is at a slightly different angle than this one. That's because I'm close to this camera, and the perspective, and we're sort of seeing, if I bring this even closer to the camera, you notice now this is pointing off in one direction and this is pointing off in another direction. The further I get away from the camera, the less that effect becomes apparent. And at the distance that you're seeing of the bird over there on the branch, you can basically think of all of these lines as being parallel. So you don't have to worry about this, that sort of having my bird, you don't have to worry about thinking of a bird out there with a horizon line and a vanishing point, and this line is going to be pointing to this one's going to be pointing to this one's going to be pointing to this, and something up there is pointing to this. If you're drawing a view where your nose is right in the feathers with that bird, then yes, you would be thinking about these things kind of having different angles. But if there's a distant bird on a bush, whatever angle this is going to be the same angle, this is going to be the same angle, this is going to be the same angle. The effect of this perspective gets less and less and less the further you are away from the object. Whoops, I'm off the screen. Now, what I want to do is to handle one other really weird thing that you're going to see on bird tails. And that is that on many bird tails, the feathers that are on the outside edge of it are slightly longer than the ones on the inside. And the result of that is that there's a little notch in the tail. So actually, to simplify this, I'm going to just cut, I'm going to cut this like this. And I'm going to remove this little piece here. Now I'm going to label these. This is side A. And this is side B. In this view, notice that side A and side B are roughly the same size. And shape. So I need to be a little bit shorter. Give myself a little bit more. There we go. So side A and side B, roughly the same size. Now, if I tilt the edge of this towards the camera and point this up towards you a little bit, look at the length here of this side B compared to side A. You see that? That's pretty dramatic, isn't it? As a matter of fact, I can get it so that side B is really short and side A is long. Doesn't it look like I'm drawing it wrong? Those are the same size. But if I turn the bird, the edge towards you, right? If I just turn it, the edge towards, if I take this and I just turn the edge towards the camera, they still are the same length. However, if I point B towards you a little bit, B becomes shorter. And you can do this with your own. So close one eye and look at yours. What you're doing is you first kind of keep this square towards you, tilt one edge up, and then point one of those corners towards you, either A or B towards you. And you're going to see that side getting shorter. The reason that it is getting shorter is as I turn it this way, as I turn this towards you, this line becomes more foreshortened towards you. This line here on A, so A will, you're going to actually sort of see it lengthening as from the camera's view, it is now more perpendicular to the camera. This one here, the more that it points straight towards the camera, the shorter it's going to get. Because they're at a different angle, you see the different lengths of those change. Whoa, that's crazy. So that means I've got a long side and a short side. Let's take a look back at this birdie over here. I've got a long side and I've got a short side over here. So birds whose tail has a little notch in it, what we tend to want to do, I'm going to draw that, what we tend to want to do is on that bird with a tail, it's kind of like this, what we want to do is to find the midpoint of it. And to make this or so kind of find the midpoint of this up here and do this. What I'm saying is that imagine the center point here, from a point up on this, if you trim down that, you're going to get a long side and you're going to get a short side. So expect an asymmetrical tail match if the bird is just turned at a little bit of an angle. That's kind of one other. This is advanced level stuff, right? So if this is feeling like, oh man, there's no way I'm going to remember that. Don't worry, you don't have to remember it, because if you're out there sketching birds, there's going to be a bird that is in front of you. And let me see if I have any other photographs that are So showing a nice 3/4 view tail. There we go. So I've got a short side and a long side. And this, for birds that are right at eye level, you're not going to be really seeing this, but if the bird is a little bit higher than your head or a little bit lower than your head, you're going to start to see this. And that's pretty cool. Let's see if this one has it. No, that one's kind of square to us, but that one did. And I have 4 minutes. So in my final 4, what I want to do is to show one other really cool thing. What I'm going to do is you're down walking through the woods and you look up in a tree and there is a bird kind of up over there. And so you're seeing a little bit more of its underside. And you're seeing kind of it's going to be at a little bit of a 3/4 view. And so that means a bird's head is going to be up here somewhere. And its undertail coverts are going to be attaching in here. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm thinking of, if this is my undertail coverts, I'm then going to wrap a body around that, and then there's going to be a head that is on the other side. So that's the bird turned to balls. But I want to think of these masses of the undertail coverts as I get to see all of this undertail covert patch. That's coming, then the body's going to come up and it's going to block a little bit of the head. So let me do a little bit of bird construction. If this is the belly of my bird, I'm going to make this bird a little bit more of a carving. I'm going to carve this bird out of wood. And this will be the side of my bird. Into this plane here, I'm going to insert my here's where my undertail coverts are going to come in, and I'm going to think of, if I've got this is the angle of my body, I'm going to keep this same angle on my undertail coverts, and I'm going to bring them in as a wedge here. I'm going to give myself a little wedge of upper tail coverts. So I'm thinking of this zone of undertail coverts as a 3-dimensional structure. It's got this plane, it's got this side here. And my tail is going to then project out through the middle of it. What is the angle that I want on the base of my tail? Do I do this? Notice that when I made a right angle here, that this this part of the tail is now not aligned with the rest of this body. But it's really easy when you're down here drawing just to get focused down here. And so instead, what I want to do is kind of go like, oh, I've got these sort of lines on these sort of angles on my body in here. I'm going to bring that line down here and also maintain it through the tail of my bird. Bird doesn't need it. Now, let's say that tail has a notch in it. There's two ways that I could do it. I could have a long side and a short side, or I could have a short side and a long side. Which one is it going to be? Here's the center of my tail. If I'm going up to some point in here, so just put me drawing a line through the middle of this tail. And if I went up to a point there, and I were to draw a line from this corner to that line, and from the corner to this line here, that is going to help me sort of figure out, like, that's what I am going to want on the tail. Here is continuing that center line up. Where does that center line come into the body? It comes in here, and here's the middle of my body line. Zipper. So what I did in there is I made kind of a three-dimensional, I thought of those undertail coverts as a three-dimensional block plugging into this mass of the body of the bird. And then I also got my kind of notch in the tail by thinking about how that is going to. Oh, that's going to be enough. Excuse me. So that is that's a deeper dive on bird tails than I've ever done in any other class. But I hope that there are some ideas here that will help you plug those your tails into the bodies of your birds in a way that's aligned with the rest of the bird. If you're doing something that is in a perfect profile view, you don't need to worry about any of that. If you're doing something that's a straight front-on view, you don't need to worry about that. But pictures get much more kind of lively and interesting when you do kind of tilt your bird at a 3/4 view. So thinking about how does that the symmetry lines that I'm seeing on the back of that bird, if the tail's not intentionally cocked at a different angle, right, then the tail is also going to be an extension of that same direction. And I hope that that was useful for you on your bird tails. Let's first just start with any comments, thoughts, and ideas about bird tails and putting those on your birds. Oh, good. Walters is here. So Valters, this workshop was for you. I hope that this answered some of the questions that you had, and good to see you.
Hi, yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I hadn't thought about the parallel lines, and I think that will really help because sometimes I get my tail right, but then my primaries, one is longer and it looks sort of weird. But I had a question about you said the height, how I made this model. It's impossible to see the little lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I turn, how I didn't quite understand when does it change, which side is higher and which side is lower.
Yeah.
I didn't catch it quite.
So first hold the tail tip at your eye level.
Yeah.
All right, so close one eye. And if it's right at eye level, then as you spin it around, you'll see that side A and B keep the same size.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm looking at it right now, take side A and point that more towards your nose so that side B is pointing away from you.
Okay.
Did you see side A get smaller?
Got it. Side A is getting smaller, yes.
And the more you point side A towards your nose, you can actually hold it at such an angle that side A has 0 length, and you see all of the length of side B.
Yep.
Right? So now, go back to holding it so that it's at your eye level. Right?
Yeah.
And now what you're going to do is you're going to take side A and rock it down, lifting, so you're tilting the A side towards you. The B side is rocking away. And you can make B get shorter. So if I hold it one way towards me, I can make A shorter. If I'm bringing B up, then I can make B shorter. If I bring A up, I can make A shorter.
Yes. Okay.
So,
yeah, and also if I now tilt it that A is shorter, the parallel lines are coming towards me, like from bottom to top.
So
towards me.
if you get it so that the if the parallel lines are at a right angle to the axis of the tail, then they stay the same size. So that's right at I can do it as long as I'm kind of keeping it at the. But the minute I kind of tilt it at an angle, now A and B are not at the same angle relative to my eye, and I'll get those changes. And so what you want to think of then is your bird, and I'm gonna draw my bird, right? I'm gonna have its back, it's looking away from me, and it's up high. How's that going to tilt? Now, what if it's pointing towards me, and I'm looking up at it, and it's I'm underside towards me, underside away from me. So the 4 possibilities are: you're looking up at the underside of the tail, and the bird is pointing towards you. The bird is then underside, bird pointing away from you. top
Mhm.
side of the bird, bird away from you, top side of the bird, bird pointing towards you. If you, my challenge for you
Yes.
is to make a little diagram. Let's actually, here's this could be fun. This could be useful. This, I haven't thought about this before, but this could be really useful. I'm going to change my camera over to this. And, right, what if we have, I'm going to make a graph. And this is going to be top. So where you're under the bird, your viewpoint. So this is going to be a viewpoint.
Mhm.
When you are under, and or at bird level, and then there is going to be above. So here I'm looking at its back. Here I'm looking more at the belly. So so this is see the back of the bird, and this is my viewpoint is under it. I can see belly. Did that make sense?
It makes sense. Yes.
Okay, and then I'm going to have, oh, I can actually have 3 views. So this is pointing away.
Jack, maybe you can remove my spotlight.
Oh, then I'll
to
make it bigger,
make
right?
it a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Let's remove that spotlight. All right. So the bird is pointing away from me. So it's looking away at a 3/4 view. Here it is sort of straight or perpendicular with me, and here is looking towards me.
Mm-hmm.
So the easiest one is going to be just when it's straight. So if I'm at bird level and it's straight, I'm going to see total symmetry in that tail tip. And if it's looking away from me or looking towards me, what I'm going to see is symmetry. If I'm looking down more on its back, I'm going to still see that symmetrical. If I'm looking up at the belly, I'm going to see that as symmetrical. Now, oh, and use a darker pencil. Oh yeah, we have to set. Well, let me lock the focus on this so it doesn't focus on my hand. Let's see. I want share a screen, visualizer, share. And we're going to manual focus. There we go. All right. So when I'm in the straight view, the sides are symmetrical. So, and you can see that on your screen when you're when you're if the tail were straight down here, if it's looking towards you, if the bird is looking away from you, A and B are the same length. All right. But now I am going to, let's look down on the back of the bird. And so my bird is going to be viewpoint above, looking away from me. Yes, okay, here we go. So I'm going to get, where's my tail coming down? I'm going to have, at bird level, if I'm at the level of my bird, these ones are also going to be, if you're at the level of the bird and you're looking at the side of the tail, it's going to be like this, right? And actually, no, forget that for now. I'll come back to that. All right, let's do this. So I'm above the bird. It's looking away from me. I am going to have a short side and a long side. Okay, so here is the bird's upper tail coverts. Let me kind of draw that in a little bit neater. So the bird's upper tail coverts are coming in here. That is this is the top of the bird, this is the bottom of the bird. I'll put in. Now, this also, oh, yeah, anyway. Now, if I go under the belly and looking away, so what I'm doing is I'm holding my bird, my bird tail from my perspective. So the angle that I'm looking at mine is different than you're seeing on your screen, right? So here I'm seeing this view. If I look a viewpoint under the belly, so if I'm looking under the belly, what I've done is I've just taken this and I've flipped it over. And I have this, I have the sides of it. I see this is long, this is short, and my undertail coverts are coming in here. So on this view here, on this underside, to make this more kind of look like the underside of a bird, that would be that I have this, there's a whole feather here, there's a whole feather here, and then the other feathers are tucked in between those. If I'm looking on the top of the bird, I have a big feather here, or two, and then my other feathers coming out away from it like that. But notice small, big, small, and big. So those were both looking away from me. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this so that it is looking towards me, under the belly, looking towards me. I have parallel lines, and I have a short side, I have a long side. I have undertail coverts coming up in here. And again, there is a big feather on either side, and then smaller, and then you're seeing the other feathers kind of tucked in like that. So I've got my small, my big. Let's go over here. And the bird is looking towards me, and I'm looking down on its back. So all I'm doing is I'm just taking my own piece of paper and I'm rocking it, so rocking it towards me. And that gives me lines. Yes. Here are my upper tail coverts coming in here. Here is outside of my tail. And again, I have big feather in here. Actually, I'm going to do this all with pen. So you can see all of this feather. And then the other feathers are tucking up on the outside of that. As same thing here. Here's where you've got your central feathers. And if I'm looking at if the bird is looking away from me, I'm going to see the tail basically coming down as a straight thing, but at the tip of it, I've actually got one point of it is here, and the other, I'm actually seeing part of the base of the tail here. The other part is in here. So I'm actually seeing part of A in here, and then part of B. If it's turned, looking away from me, looking towards me, it would be just a whole straight tail. I've never graphed it out this way, but I think that is it's a useful exercise. So what I'm what I'm doing is I'm first, I'm taking my bird, I'm making it, I'm trying to do this from an angle where you're seeing it on the screen rather than an angle relative to my eye. If the bird is looking away from me, right, and I'm looking at its back, right, then I'm going to get this short, long, just like this. If I am looking at the underside of its tail, then I've got short, long, just like that. So if I'm looking at, if it's, again, pointing away from me, and at a 3/4 view angle, I'm getting this, short, long. And then I flip the bird to side view, and then over towards its back. And now I'm getting long, short. Be helpful, more helpful if I had a darker piece of paper here. Maybe next time I do this, if I do this again, I'll have a dark piece of paper here. Or what I can do is just put a dark background behind that. There we go. So bird facing away from me. There we go. When you're looking at the underside, yeah, there we go. Underside of the tail, short, long. When I look at the top of the tail, it's this long, and it's flipped. So that's this and that. Vultures, did that make sense?
It did, yes, it did.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to stop my share. I'm glad you pushed that, because that helped me kind of articulate this for myself in a way that I hadn't before. Well, it's getting dark over there.
Yeah, but it's not as light, so still.
Let's see here. I'm going to change my camera view. So were there, with that kind of flip diagram, did that worked?
Oh, it did. Yes, it did. I did the little graph here, so
oh yeah,
I might have to cut it out and put it in the journal for a little reference, and then put this also in the back.
So here's what I recommend doing with this is, yeah, you can have this with you anytime you just want to kind of review that, but I find with like a little paper model like this, and actually we're going to be doing this with the seabird workshop, is I'm going to be giving people kind of a seabird cutout, and then with that seabird cutout, you know, just spending some time looking at it and visualizing it. A good thing to do is to take something like this, and this is going to sound a little bit crass, but just put it on the back of the tank of the toilet. So on the toilet tank. And then if once a day or sometimes more, right, you find yourself sitting there, just get this out, close one eye, and just sort of visualize it and sort of think about it. And it sort of gives you a time where you're not really, you know, there's not enough time there to read a book. And, you know, you can't bring your ukulele in there as easily. But you can just sort of sit there with this and kind of observe it and notice it, observe it and notice it. And it really helps to say out loud what you are seeing. Because if you just think about it in your head, it doesn't really register in our brains in the same way, but just sort of having this and kind of talking it out loud to yourself, that's going to help, that's going to make a difference. And just sort of see if that helps it sort of stick. And then what's going to happen is you'll be out there and you'll look up there and you'll see that little angle in the tail on a bird and you'll be like, oh, you got the little tail angle thing, there it is, and sort of celebrate it when you see it in the field. When you're looking through your scope and you see that little angle, just kind of go like, that thing, because that's, and then realize that you are actually perceiving a counterintuitive aspect of perspective, because our brains want to keep that tail tip symmetrical. They really, really do. We say, I know it's symmetrical, I'm going to draw it symmetrical, right? But no, you're going to draw, it's this symmetrical tail, but you're going to draw one side long and the other side short. Oh, yeah, that's great. Are there any journal pages happening recently that you wanted to share? Oh, we have to allow you to unmute. Hold on, sorry, my bad. Yes.
Just pigeons and chickens.
Pigeons and chickens are good.
Yeah, well,
You've got Ray Bonto's attention.
Well, these are the chickens. I've never drawn chickens before, so my first time chickens. These are some quick, I really tried, I got this blue pencil now, and it really helps. It helps massively. So as you can see, first ones are starting out weird, but with time, they get better.
Oh,
but
look at that progression of
moving around
chickens.
so fast, so.
Look at that. Yes, yes,
And
yes.
I've got a second page also, so. Ooh.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, how interesting when it puts its head down. What a cool little posture.
Yeah, that one. And then pigeons today, because there were no other birds, but turns out they are also pretty interesting. This one was nesting, so and quite a lot of questions popped in my mind. For example, what is this white blob for? And I have the Sibley Guide to Bird Behavior, or it was something like that, with the tanager on the cover.
What the bird knows?
No, what do birds do and why?
About
song. I can. It's called. Oh, I have it here. What it's like to be a bird.
Yes, what it's like to be a bird.
What it's like to be a bird. Yes, what it's like to be a bird. And that one, I tried to search for it, but I could not find what was the function of this thing.
Interesting. All right, so we're throwing that question out to all the crew in the Nature Journal Club. Let's do, if anybody can kind of do some investigation, if anybody comes up with any research on what is the function of that strange little tab on the pigeon face, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I discovered that the pigeons have surprisingly long primaries, and I've never noticed that. So but according, I've seen a lot of pigeons flying here around very fast, especially on the windy days. And well, I have to say some don't make it, but we have kind of a joke going around that they are training, they're like fighter jets flying around with maximum speeds, and it's Top Gun happening here on the camera.
It's Top Gun. Yep.
Yeah.
Talk to me, Goose. Yeah.
About that, yeah.
You know, it's interesting that you should say that, because the person who has done the most, I think, exciting and interesting research on bird flight is Dr. Kenneth Dial. And when I was a graduate student in Montana, his flight lab, I think he's now moved to Cornell. Oh, wow, hold on a second. Is there a mirror or reflective surface behind you? because I just watched an airplane go along and then disappear and then go the other way and then
Oh,
disappear.
yes.
All right, so that's a
Yeah, it
reflective
looks like
surface.
they
That's like,
are going, yeah, it looks like they're going
yes.
to
Like,
collide, but no, there's an
oh.
airport and they're going like that. Yeah.
Okay. So Dr. Kenneth Dial had the flight lab at University of Montana. I think he may now be at Cornell. But he was studying bird flight, and the way that he had several different techniques. He had these these wind tunnels, and he would train the pigeons to fly in the wind tunnel. So the pigeon would fly along in the wind tunnel, and so that he could have the camera right on it, and then all these sensors in it, and so know exactly which mussels were flying, and be able to calculate all of these, you know, these super fine, precise sort of changes in what it was doing. And then he also he would take over the hallway outside his office and put these sort of signs up at the staircase on either side, like do not enter, bird flight in progress. And he'd put these barriers up down the hall, and then release a pigeon that was attached to sensors down the hall, and it would do this slalom course. And so he learned all these things about the minutia of bird flight and turning and maneuverability. Yeah. And so he was invited by the US Air Force to come talk to all of their Top Gun pilots and the people that were researching planes. And he said, he complimented on their flying ability, and then proceeded to explain to them that every day the pigeon that you see in the park is doing these flight maneuvers that are completely impossible with all of our technology. And so they are aerodynamically outperforming our finest performance aircraft. And so, yeah, they're Top Gun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right. They're Top Gun.
So you have to name some of your, if you can identify individual pigeons, like Ray Bonto can, you can name, one goose and maverick and Iceman, and you can name your birds.
Yeah. Yeah, goose is the best.
Goose is good. Goose is good.
But yeah. And they're interesting on the airplanes. There's also a book for maybe somebody that's interested. It's called Skunk Works, and it's not. There's no birds mentioned, but it's. It was a special from Lockheed. That Lockheed is producing helicopters and all airplanes, missiles, and for military. And they are Skunk Works is a special segment that produces spy planes. So also very interesting about aerodynamics, and just if somebody's interested.
That's cool to maybe put a link to that in the chat, or just the yes, and then we can also look.
Put the name.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we've got also Ann Chadwick on from Point Blue Conservation Science with tell us about the book that you've got.
Yeah, so a friend gave me this book recently, and it has incredible pictures, and this guy has curated some wonderful exhibits. I think he's up in Seattle and worked with the Audubon Society to do exhibits on birds in flight. And I'm just going to flip to a couple of pages in here that I marked, just to give you an idea of what's in here. He's just got incredible photos of